Welcome to Twilight Tale, a place where history softens its voice and time drifts quietly into sleep. Tonight, we travel back more than 4,000 years to the golden sands of ancient Egypt, a world of towering pyramids, sacred rivers, and gods who watched every breath. But beneath the glow of torchlight and stone temples, life was far harsher than it appears in legend. If you were suddenly placed there, without modern comforts, without knowledge of their laws, diseases, or dangers, you might not survive even a single day. So settle into your pillow, slow your breathing, and let your thoughts wander as I tell you a quiet story of heat and hunger, of rituals and risks, and of why the ancient world was not made for modern souls. This is why you wouldn't survive a day in ancient Egypt, a history story for sleep.
A single lamp trembles in the deep silence of a tomb corridor. The flickering flame, fragile and steadfast, breathes softly against the painted walls, its light casting fleeting shadows that dance like memories in the dark. It is said that the flames, though small, were never allowed to go out. They were the last promise the living made to the dead, the only thing standing between two worlds. The walls themselves are alive with color, vibrant and sacred, stretching beneath the weight of history like the breath of a hidden god. Why then did the Egyptians fill the darkness with so much color? What secret truth whispered in the curves of the painted birds, the red of the soil, the blue of the sky? As we move deeper into the tomb, the air grows thick with mystery. This is not merely a place of rest, it is the house of eternity, where every image is a spell, every figure a promise, each symbol a bridge between the realms of the living and the dead. The birds carved in the walls are not just art, they are guides, eternal travelers meant to carry the soul safely through the shadowed halls. The painted eyes follow us, but they do not watch in warning. They guide, gently, as though the very stones know the road the soul must take. In this silence, time does not pass, it rests. In the distance, the faint murmur of wind brushes the heavy curtains of the tomb's entrance, and the scent of incense rises like smoke from the earth itself. The faint glow of a lamp casts its uncertain light across the seals of the door, a door painted with lapis blue symbols, gleaming like trapped starlight. The patterns shimmer softly, like the whispers of distant voices from long before. This door, sealed and ancient, was meant to be crossed only by one who knew the secret names, the names that could open the gate and summon the journey of the soul. The door is more than stone. It is a boundary, an invitation, a challenge. Only those who walk with knowledge may enter. The question floats through the air like the sweet, distant scent of a flower. What then were the names? We have no answer, only the feeling that they have long since been forgotten, lost in the sands of time, swallowed by the silence that follows death. Slowly we wander deeper still. The priestesses and priests move like shadows through the heavy, incense-laden air. They do not speak, but their hands carve deeper into the stone, each gesture slow and deliberate, as though their labor is an offering. Each stroke of the chisel, each delicate press of pigment against the stone is an act of love, a dedication that reaches beyond the present, beyond the living. These artisans, so humble in their service, are preparing for eternity. They work in silence, because silence is sacred. Each image they carve, each figure they paint, holds meaning far beyond our understanding. Each is a key to a world we cannot enter.
The Egyptians, it seems, lived not for this world, but for the next. The contrast between their preparations for the afterlife and the fleeting nature of their life here on earth is almost incomprehensible. The tombs, built with stone and sweat, seem to hum with the energy of a people who feared death not for its end, but for what came after. Was it death they feared? Or was it the long, slow forgetfulness that would come after? What if the real terror was not the journey to the next world, but the fear of never being remembered, of fading into oblivion like a forgotten name, like dust on a forgotten shelf? The air inside the tomb holds a strange tension. The stones have been here for centuries, their surfaces smoothed by time, their colors muted by the breath of 1,000 years. And yet the tomb remains warm, alive almost, as though it remembers the steps of those who once walked here. We listen for the breath of the tomb itself, the faint rise and fall of air in the stillness, the subtle shift of dust lifting from the cold stone. There is a heartbeat here, though it is not ours. The tension in this place is palpable, like a breath held in the chest of the earth itself. A door waits in silence, sealed, holding its secrets in the way that only stone can. Is it waiting for someone to speak? Or is it waiting for something else? An offering, a promise, a weight of truth. Perhaps if you step wrongly, the door will not open. Perhaps if your heart is heavier than truth, the stones will remain closed, their secrets sealed forever. The gate is a living thing, its pulse slow and deliberate, a promise that can be kept only by the purest of souls.
There is a hum here, too, a sound that does not reach the ears, but vibrates through the bones. A vibration that tells us something important is just out of reach. It is said that the Egyptians believed the heart was the seat of the soul. If the heart was heavy with guilt or lies, the soul could never pass through the gates. But if the heart was light, filled with truth, then the door would open and the soul would be free to journey beyond this world into the house of eternity. What then did they fear more, dying or being forgotten? Perhaps it was both. Perhaps the fear of dying was the same as the fear of losing one's name, of being swallowed by the endless night and never again being remembered. The ancient Egyptians, with their careful rituals and elaborate tombs, did not prepare for death as we do. They prepared for what would come after, for the possibility of eternity without an identity, without memory, without a trace. As we stand before the door, we feel the weight of this fear settle over us like a blanket. The silence deepens, and the world outside the tomb fades away, leaving only the stillness of this sacred space. Perhaps it was never meant to be found, this truth, this mystery. Perhaps the answers have always been there, waiting in the dust, in the stones, in the soft whisper of the tomb. But now the question remains suspended in the stillness. Were the dead truly alone? Did they find the peace they sought in the silence of their eternal rest? Or were they forever bound to the world of the living, trapped in a forgotten dream? And so we leave the tomb, the door still closed, the mystery still intact. The light from the lamp flickers one last time before it is swallowed by the darkness, leaving only the faintest echo of its warmth. And in that echo, we are reminded some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. As we fade into silence, we leave behind the house of the dead, its secrets still locked in the lapis blue of the door. We may never know what lies beyond, but the door remains, waiting for the right heart, the right soul to unlock its truth. And for now, perhaps that is enough. The first image is the river itself, stretching beneath the cold, silvery gaze of the moon. The water is calm, still as sleep, yet older than time, its surface mirroring the heavens. It is said that this river holds the secrets of the world, its depths a cradle for ancient souls. The Nile does not reveal itself to us in bright daylight or sharp detail. It unfurls its mysteries in the dark hours of the night, when the world is held in a sacred hush. The moonlight dances upon its surface like a whisper, and beneath the water's placid exterior there is an unmistakable pulse, slow, eternal, like the breath of the earth itself. And in this quiet wonder, we ask, how could a river be both cradle and blade? The Nile, at once a giver of life and a harbinger of destruction, carries with it an essence older than every name, every kingdom, every god. Its breath rises in mist, thick and heavy like the memory of ages, curling around the banks as though it were the soul of creation itself. The river does not simply flow, it moves with purpose, carrying offerings to the earth, and at times sweeping them away in the current. Bones drift beneath its surface, faint remnants of those who once relied on its bounty, leaving behind only whispers in the water. The river's mood is capricious. A day begins not with certainty, but with the quiet uncertainty of the Nile itself. Will it give today? Will it take? The question lingers, as delicate as the first breath of dawn. Before the sun breaks the horizon, the farmers of the land rise in silence. Their feet sink deep into the silt, soft and thick, as if the earth itself were a living thing, cradling their every step. The clay clings to their skin like sacred dust. They walk in reverence, not as masters of the land, but as humble servants to its rhythms. The river gives much. Grain ripens in its floodwaters, fish leap in its embrace, and reeds grow tall along its banks, whispering the secrets of the ages. Yet for all its gifts, the river takes. Crocodiles, their eyes gleaming like dark coins, surface with the quiet menace of the forgotten gods. Hippos glide beneath the water's veil, their massive forms moving with a power that speaks of ancient forces beyond reckoning. There is no loud roar of danger, only the quiet, knowing gaze of the river. The water has teeth, and the people with their bare feet in its muddy depths know this truth in their bones. The river speaks not with violence, but with silence. Its power is in the absence of warning, in the calm presence of its eternal flow. The earth's pulse beats through the water, and in its rhythm there is both creation and destruction. The land lives only because the river allows it to, and yet, in the same breath, the river's hunger remains insatiable, devouring as much as it bestows.
The Nile, in its fullness, is both the bloodstream of creation and a spirit untouched by human desire. It is protected by unseen powers, deities who guard its depths, and yet it remains indifferent to the pleading of men and women who seek its favor. The farmers toil with their hands, casting seeds into the soil, knowing that it is the river's will, not their own, that determines their harvest. The water nourishes, yes, but it also withholds, swallows, and consumes. In the stillness of the river's wake, there is an ancient paradox. The same water that cleanses a temple, that carries prayers in its current, can also carry disease, sickness, and death. The same flood that brings renewal and fertility to the land can erase entire villages, sweep them away as though they were nothing more than forgotten marks in the sand. Perhaps it is this contradiction that gives the Nile its mystery, its power. The people who live by its shores do not mistake the river for a friend. They know it as a force, both sacred and fearsome. And yet their very survival depends upon it. How delicate, then, is this balance? How fragile the line between life and death, creation and destruction? It is said that the ancient Egyptians did not worship the Nile as a god in the traditional sense. They revered it as a living being, a spirit that moves through the world with a power all its own. And in that reverence there is both fear and awe, a quiet meditation on dependence. As the day unfolds, it becomes a meditation on survival, on the ways in which the river shapes and reshapes the lives of those who draw from its waters. With every sip, they are reminded that they are not in control. The Nile, though it gives, also takes, and the people, in their daily offerings, understand that life itself is a prayer, repeated with each new dawn. Each breath of the earth carries with it the weight of this truth. They have learned that the river does not promise safety, only sustenance, and in that sustenance there is always the quiet edge of peril. The river's mood can change with the turning of the tide, and those who live by it must listen closely, always aware, always attuned to the subtle shifts in its flow. As the sun begins to dip beneath the horizon, the river darkens, its surface now a mirror of the fading light. The once clear waters have become shadowed and deep, holding their secrets beneath the surface. The farmers return to their homes, their feet no longer sinking into the earth, but now walking upon solid ground, the weight of the day settling like dust upon their shoulders. The river's breath has slowed, and with it the world seems to pause, waiting, holding its own breath. The silence that falls is profound, as if the river itself is gathering its strength, preparing for the next turn of the moon. And we too are left in silence, suspended between the moment of the sun's final breath and the coming of the night. Perhaps this is the truest nature of the river, an eternal cycle of giving and taking, a spirit whose hunger is hidden beneath the calm surface, waiting for those who dare to listen. And so we are left with the quiet weight of it all. The river swallows the sun, as it has, as it has always will. Its hunger is vast, but its offering is subtle. We are reminded then that survival is a fragile thing, that the earth, in all its beauty, is both a cradle and a blade, ever shifting beneath us, ever testing our faith. The Nile moves on, its depths holding the weight of time, its currents carrying all that is known and all that is forgotten. Perhaps it was never meant to be fully understood. Perhaps it simply is. And in that understanding, we are left with the soft dread of needing something that can devour us. The sun has set now, and the river rests beneath the stars. The air is cool and the world is still. It is a quiet moment, a pause, as if the earth itself is remembering something lost to time. And in that memory, we are left with a single thought. The river does not belong to us. It is both cradle and blade, both giver and taker, and in its depths we find the true mystery of survival. A soft question rises, like smoke in the night. What if the sweetest comfort carried a hidden wound? The scene is simple, almost domestic. The air is thick with the warmth of a hearth, glowing softly in the dimness of a quiet home. Grain is poured into a stone mortar, the rhythmic motion of the pestle grinding it down against the rough surface of the millstone. The sound is familiar, a daily hum of life, the beating heart of a world that lives, breathes, and survives in slow, deliberate motion. The warm scent of flower rises, mingling with the faint smoke of the fire. Hands worn with work, a soft question rises like smoke in the night. What if the sweetest comfort carried a hidden wound? The scene is simple, almost domestic. The air is thick with the warmth of a hearth, glowing softly in the dimness of a quiet home. Grain is poured into a stone mortar, the rhythmic motion of the pestle grinding it down against the rough surface of the millstone. The sound is familiar, a daily hum of life, the beating heart of a world that lives, breathes, and survives in slow, deliberate motion. The warm scent of flower rises, mingling with the faint smoke of the fire. Hands worn with work shape the bread with care. The dough rises and falls in steady rhythm, mirroring the pulse of the day. And yet, beneath this comforting scene, there is a deeper mystery, an unseen, quiet danger. Tiny grains of sand from the desert, fragments of stone dust from the millstone, the sharp particles that remain unnoticed. Slowly, imperceptibly, they settle into the flour, into the food that sustains the body. It is said that over time, these small, sharp fragments wear down the body from within, carving their marks on the bones and the teeth, leaving traces of their passage in places we cannot see. The sweetness of the bread, the warmth of the hearth, hides a silent poison, one that is swallowed with each bite. And so the question remains, what if the bread you love carries with it the very thing that will break you? We follow an ordinary day in ancient Egypt, not through the grandeur of kings or the glitter of gold, but through the simple rituals of survival. The day unfolds not with the flash of jewels, but in quiet moments, the grinding of grain, the filling of a cup, the chewing of food. We see a child, her eyes wide with wonder, offered a honeyed cake, its sweetness a blessing on her lips. The honey glows, golden and warm, a symbol of the earth's goodness. A worker bites into coarse bread, his teeth meeting the dense texture, his jaw working to grind it down. The bread is basic, sustaining, but there is nothing comforting in the hardness of it. A grandmother, her hands trembling slightly with age, murmurs thanks to the household gods, her voice low, her words old, carrying the weight of generations. These are the rituals that fill the days, and as they unfold, the true mystery of the land becomes clear, not in the sweeping grandeur of its architecture or the grandeur of its royal court, but in the small, repetitive acts of survival. The rhythm of life is slow, measured, grounded in the earth, yet beneath the calm surface there is a subtle, constant erosion, a quiet suffering, carried in each swallow, each bite. And so, behind the calm, the mystery deepens. An ancient contradiction surfaces, one that cannot be ignored. A civilization that carved monuments to beauty, a civilization renowned for its splendor, lived with quiet, grinding hardships that wore down the very bodies of its people. The hands that shaped the monuments also shaped the bread. The same hands that built the temples also ate the grain. The bodies of these people bore the weight of the land, not in dramatic wars or grand sacrifices, but in the slow, invisible burdens of survival itself. The marks are not always visible. There are no scars upon the skin, but they are carried in the teeth that ache, the bones that quietly groan under the strain of time. The civilization that gave the world great wonders also lived with hidden wounds, worn slowly into the flesh and bone by the very tools of daily life. The exploration now drifts deeper into the sacredness of these everyday rituals. For the ancient Egyptians, food was not merely sustenance, it was an offering. To the gods they gave bread and beer, daily nourishment made holy. These simple acts, eating and drinking, carried the weight of reverence. And yet the reality of these offerings was never so simple. The bread, though blessed, was often coarse, its texture rough, its taste marked by the imperfections of the earth. The beer, too, was cloudy, uncertain, its waters not always pure, but tainted with the very elements that formed the land. The grain itself, cultivated with care, could carry the sands of the desert, the dust of the earth, the particles that wear away at the body. Water was uncertain, and even the sweet golden beer could carry within it the traces of a poison that would never be seen. The same hands that kneaded bread, that prepared the beer, also bore the weight of these hidden dangers. And as the people drank, as they ate, they were sustained, but also slowly undone. The same sacred rituals, the same offerings made in reverence, were also the source of an unseen, unspoken erosion. Survival, it seemed, was not always dramatic. Sometimes it was slow and quiet, like the wind against stone, wearing it down with the passage of time. In the final reflection, the scene begins to dim. The hearth's glow softens, fading into the cool shadows of the evening. The bread, now cooled and set aside, sits like an offering upon the table. We imagine the taste of it, grain and dust, the soft sweetness of the honeyed cake lingering upon the tongue, the weight of the coarse bread filling the mouth. The grains of sand, the tiny sharp fragments lie hidden within, almost forgotten, like the dangers we no longer see. The soft weariness of the body, the subtle ache in the teeth, the quiet burden of years spent grinding down the grain becomes the final thought. These invisible dangers, carried on the backs of those who work, are the ones that are most easily forgotten. In the rituals of life, in the sweetness of bread and honey, we forget that there are hidden poisons that work slowly, unseen, until it is too late to recall the first bite. Perhaps, in the end, this is the gentlest danger, the one that lulls you into forgetting it exists, until it is already too late. The hearth now dims and the light fades, leaving only the soft flicker of shadows on the walls. The listener is left in quiet reflection, a soft sense of wonder lingering in the air. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps the true cost of survival is simply in the forgetting of what we cannot see. Some dangers, it seems, are meant to remain hidden, only to echo when we are finally ready to listen.
The first breath of dawn stirs the earth, heavy with moisture, dark as ink, fragrant as memory. Beneath the veil of the early morning mist, the land lies still, like a sleeping god waiting for the kiss of the sun. It is said that the ancient Egyptians called their homeland the Black Land, a name that echoed the rich, dark soil left behind by the flooding of the Nile. But the desert, the land beyond the reach of the river's embrace, was called the Red Land, where the sun burned fiercely and the earth was dry, unforgiving. But why? Why did the Egyptians call it so? In the soil of the Black Land, life began anew with each passing flood, and in the same soil, the bones of the dead rested beneath the earth. It was a land that both birthed and consumed, where the boundary between life and death was as thin as the veil of mist that lingers over the fields at dawn. The soil itself seemed to reflect the rhythm of flood and harvest, life and burial, a mirror of time, unbroken yet ever-changing. Beneath the weight of history, the land carries its secrets, its cycles, its echoes. Perhaps it was the darkness of the earth, rich and fertile, that mirrored the ancient mysteries of the afterlife. Perhaps it was the promise the land held that from death life would return once again, season after season, endlessly. The land of Egypt was a place where the boundaries between life and death were not fixed. Instead, they shifted like the waters of the Nile, sometimes quiet and gentle, other times raging, unpredictable, and capable of wiping away all that was known. We walk now through the fields. The earth is soft underfoot, the air cool with the last breath of night. Farmers move in slow lines, their bodies bent with labor, their hands rough with the work of a lifetime. Their tools are simple, made from wood and stone, small, humble instruments shaped by necessity, not art. Yet their hope is immense, a quiet prayer whispered with each step, with each swing of the hoe. They work not just for today, but for the future, for the promise of a harvest that will sustain them through another year. The land is generous only when the Nile chooses to be kind, and the river's rhythms are not always predictable. Some years it floods too much, washing away everything. Other years it stays away, and the earth cracks beneath the heat of the sun. There is an underlying hush in the air, a quiet tension that rides on every breath. The fear of drought is always close, just beyond the horizon, waiting to strike. The ache of hunger is a ghost that haunts the fields, whispering in the wind, reminding the farmers of how fragile their dependence is on cycles they cannot control. Every seed pressed into the earth is a small offering to the gods, a humble plea for mercy. The work is slow, steady, and repetitive, like the passage of time itself,
sometimes grueling, sometimes meditative, but always marked by the knowledge that survival depends on forces greater than any single person.
As we continue, we see the fields not as farms, but as altars. The land is sacred, each furrow, each grain of wheat, an offering to the unseen powers that shape life and death. The harvest is not merely a reward for toil, it is a covenant, a bond with powers that live beyond sight. The workers move as priests, their labor a form of devotion, their sweat a sacred sacrifice. Each step they take is in rhythm with the unseen world, each grain of seed a prayer offered to the gods of the Nile, to the gods of the land, to the gods of the afterlife. And yet, this sacred labor carries within it a quiet contradiction. The same culture that built monuments for eternity, that carved the names of kings into the stone of the pyramids, depended on a crop that could fail in a single season. The great temples to Ra, to Isis, to Osiris were built to honor the gods and ensure the continuation of life. But the bread, the wheat, the grain that fed the people could be lost. A single drought, a single poor harvest could bring an entire civilization to its knees. The scale of survival in the Black Land was fragile, like the finest thread stretched across the vast emptiness of the desert. We see baskets of grain being measured, stored, and taxed, each basket a small negotiation with the gods, a careful exchange between survival and fate. The hands that carry the grain are calloused and strong, yet they are at the mercy of forces beyond their control. They measure, they count, they store, knowing that the balance between abundance and starvation is a fragile one. The rhythm of the land, of the seasons, is both a promise and a threat. The harvest, sacred as it is, must always be tempered by the knowledge that it is not guaranteed. The grains of wheat lie in their baskets like fragile treasure, each kernel a tiny prayer for mercy. The narrative begins to slow, like a quiet walk through rows of wheat beneath the soft gaze of starlight. The night has settled over the land, and the fields are now bathed in silver moonlight. The wind whispers through the tall stalks of wheat, its sound like a priest's whisper, soft and low. The land is silent, save for the rustle of the wind and the steady rhythm of the earth beneath our feet. The stars above are distant, ancient, their light faint but ever present, like the ancient gods themselves, quiet, watching, unmovable. In this stillness, there is no grand revelation. There is only the slow unfolding of time, the quiet prayer of the land, the unspoken understanding that survival is both labor and mercy. The land gives, and the land takes. The soil nurtures, and the soil claims. The grain, the bread, the harvest, these are all part of a great cycle, a cycle that stretches far beyond the human realm. It is a cycle that has existed long before the first stone was laid for the pyramids, and it will continue long after the last stone crumbles into dust. The chapter begins to fade, like the last light of dusk slipping into night. A handful of seeds is pressed into the soil, the earth taking them gently, without hesitation. The prayer is whispered into the dusk, soft as the wind, carried on the breath of the land itself. The stars above flicker quietly, as if listening, as if waiting for the answer to the prayer. There is no great epiphany,
no grand conclusion. There is only the quiet uncertainty of life itself. How much of survival is labor, and how much is mercy? The question lingers in the air, unanswered, like the sound of a distant drumbeat that echoes but never reaches its end. It is a question that will be answered only by the land, in the slow passage of time, in the shifting of the seasons. The listener is left suspended in the stillness, in the sacred silence of the land, as the night deepens and the stars watch over the black land, ever constant, ever silent. The sun rises over the land of Egypt, spilling its rays over the stone, bright and slow, merciless in their heat. The air grows thick with the promise of another day under the weight of the heavens. The first light is not gentle, no, it is sharp and intense, as if it pierces the very soul of the earth. The question comes softly, yet unsettling, carried by the stillness. How do you survive when the sky itself feels like a furnace? The heat presses down upon the land, its weight unyielding, its silence as sharp as the blade of a knife. The sun, in its unwavering gaze, is both life-giver and judge, a constant reminder of forces beyond human control. The earth below seems to burn with the same intensity, and yet the people continue, steadfast, determined. The heat is never a background presence, but a dominating force that shapes every action, every moment. It is said that the Egyptians did not simply live under the sun, they lived with the sun. It was Ra's eye that watched over them, Ra's eye that blessed them, and Ra's eye that could burn them with a single glance. The land seemed to know no respite, only the relentless march of time, driven by the sun's unyielding path across the sky. We drift through the midday streets of ancient Egypt, where shadows are thin and precious. The workers, their skin darkened by the sun, lift heavy stone with steady breath, their movements slow and deliberate, as if each action must be carefully measured against the sun's scorching gaze. There is no rush here, no urgency beyond the need to survive. The air shimmers, heat rising from the stones, distorting the world with its invisible veil. The sun, high above, is a silent judge, casting down its harsh gaze upon the workers. Water is rationed, sipped from clay vessels, precious as gold. Every drop is savored, every breath taken in quiet reverence to the rhythm of the day. Yet, for all its heaviness, the world does not crack under the weight of the sun. The people, though vulnerable, are unyielding, moving with a calm purpose, as if every action is a prayer. It is said that survival in Egypt was not simply a matter of endurance, but a matter of ritual. Each movement was an offering, each step taken in reverence to the gods, to Ra, to the very sun that gave life and could just as easily take it. The land, bathed in light, seemed to breathe in rhythm with the sun, its cycles a slow, sacred dance of survival. As we move deeper into this world, the sun reveals itself not merely as weather, but as a living, breathing presence. Ra, the great god of the sun, was both worshipped and feared. The journey of the sun across the sky was not simply the movement of celestial bodies, it was a cosmic trial, a divine pilgrimage. The sun's rise marked the beginning of the day, but its descent was a journey into darkness, a crossing through the underworld. At night, the sun would travel through the realm of shadows, fighting the forces of chaos before rising again to begin the cycle once more. This journey, eternal and unchanging, was both a blessing and a burden. For the Egyptians, the sun's power was a reminder of the fragile balance between life and death,
between creation and destruction. The same light that made crops grow and the rivers swell could also steal strength from the body, leaving the land barren and the people exhausted. The heat of midday, relentless and unforgiving, was a reminder that survival in Egypt was not just about enduring the elements, it was about navigating the fine line between devotion and destruction. Survival in this land of extremes became a ritual of its own. The Egyptians did not simply shelter from the sun, they honored it, respecting its power while submitting to its mercy. To move under the blazing sun was a slow prayer, a dance with the divine forces that shaped their world. The people would cover their skin, seeking shade wherever it could be found. The shadows beneath the palm trees were sacred places where bodies could rest and the heat could be tempered, if only for a moment. Every action, from the smallest gesture to the heaviest task, was done with reverence, with the awareness that the sun was not just a part of life, it was a constant living presence, a force that demanded respect and endurance. Even as the people worked, the sun's rays were never far from their minds. The land, bathed in golden light, seemed to shimmer with the weight of time. It was a place where the gods were present in every stone, every breath of wind, every shadow cast by the towering buildings. And yet, the gods were not merely worshipped in grand temples, they were honored in the daily acts of survival. To endure the heat, to live under the sun's fierce gaze was itself an act of devotion. As the day drifts into its final hours, the sun begins its descent. The heat loosens, the sky softens, and the world exhales in quiet relief. The shadows grow longer, stretching out across the land as if to embrace the cooling air. The workers, their tasks completed for the day, seek refuge in the shade, their bodies heavy with the weariness of the sun's relentless heat. The world, for a moment, feels still, almost sacred. The light that had been so harsh now softens into gold, casting a warm glow over the land, as if the gods themselves are blessing the earth for its endurance. The final reflection settles like the cooling dusk. The day is over, but the questions remain. Even the gods that nourish you can demand endurance as devotion. The land that gives life can also take it away, and the same sun that provides warmth can also scorch and burn. This paradox, the gift and the sacrifice, is the essence of survival in ancient Egypt. It is a rhythm, a pulse, a balance that must be maintained between reverence and endurance, between the power of the gods and the fragility of life. And so, as the sun dips below the horizon, leaving only the soft light of the afterglow, the listener is left suspended in the cooling hush of the evening. The world seems to breathe more gently now, as if the stones themselves are finally allowed to sleep. The silence is heavy, pregnant with the knowledge that the sun will rise again tomorrow, bringing with it both life and challenge. Perhaps this is the true nature of the sun, not a mere celestial body, but a living, breathing force that shapes every life it touches. The last thought lingers, as soft as the evening breeze. Perhaps survival is not just about enduring the heat, but knowing when to rest in the shade. The warmth of the day recedes, and the night envelops the land, leaving only the stars to watch over the silent stones. The sun, once a judge, now rests, waiting for the next day's rise. The wind moves gently over the desert, and with it, a single footprint slowly vanishes. A traveler's mark, once clear in the sand, now fades like a memory lost to time. The stillness lingers, profound and sacred. The desert, vast and unyielding, holds its secrets close, whispering only to those who listen. It is said that in these spaces, between oases, where even echoes cannot survive, something ancient stirs. The desert is not empty. It is a chamber of waiting, a place where distance becomes a quiet test, and where every step feels like a step into another realm. In the distance, the horizon trembles with heat, as though the land itself is breathing, and every footfall is both a question and an answer. What lives here, beneath the surface of sand, beneath the sun's watchful gaze? What hides in the folds of time, in the spaces where even memory struggles to remain? These questions drift like the endless wind, unanswered but ever present. A traveler steps forward, leaving behind the river's comfort, stepping on to the unforgiving red land that stretches before them. The air is thick with dust, and the sun, pale behind a veil of swirling particles, hangs heavy in the sky. Each breath feels like a fragile thing, each step measured and slow. The sand is relentless, and the horizon offers no promise of respite. The tone of the day is slow, meditative, an endless walk under the watchful eye of the sun, its rays soft and distant, but always present. Every sip of water is a sacred decision, weighed carefully, as if each drop could be the difference between survival and surrender. The traveler moves with purpose, but each movement carries the weight of the world. The sand shifts, each grain a whisper, each gust of wind a reminder of the vastness, of the silence. The path ahead is not marked by footsteps, but by knowledge, knowledge of where the wells are hidden, knowledge of the stars above, knowledge of the direction of the wind, which speaks a language only the most attuned can understand. This is survival by knowledge, by instinct, by the ancient wisdom passed down through generations. As we follow this traveler deeper into the desert, the landscape begins to shift. The earth beneath their feet becomes even more desolate, the dunes higher, the shadows longer. The sky, once a soft pale blue, is now an expanse of dusky gold and copper, heavy with the weight of time. The traveler, like so many before them, carries more than just provisions. They carry amulets, prayers, and a silent understanding of the world they walk through. The desert, after all, is not merely land. It is a threshold, a border between worlds. It is said that in the desert, the veil between life and death is thin. Spirits wander here, lost or seeking, passing through the endless sands like fleeting thoughts. The traveler listens, always alert, for the sound of serpents or scorpions, those silent guardians of the sand, whose presence is barely felt, but whose sting can end a life. The traveler moves with reverence, aware that the desert holds both danger and grace, that survival here is as much spiritual as it is physical. Every step carries the weight of history, the footsteps of those who have walked this path before, of those who have disappeared without a trace. The desert may seem endless, but in its vast emptiness there is a deep and quiet connection. It is a land where time folds in on itself, where the past, present, and future are all woven together in the shifting sands. Here, in this barren expanse, the traveler's journey becomes not one of conquering, but of surviving, a journey that humbles, that asks not for mastery, but for humility before the forces of nature and spirit alike. The traveler reaches a faint glimmer in the distance, a mirage, or perhaps something more. Is it water, or is it only the illusion of it? In the desert, the line between reality and dream blurs, and the traveler cannot tell. The wind picks up, swirling around, and the glimmer fades, as all things in the desert fade, into sand, into air, into the forgotten. The traveler pauses, unsure, their breath steady, but filled with the quiet ache of uncertainty. There is no answer, only the feeling of something just out of reach, something that slips through fingers like sand. The desert does not give easily. It asks for patience, for faith, for acceptance. It asks for respect and quiet surrender to its rhythms. Perhaps this is the true nature of the desert, not a place to be conquered, but a place to survive with humility, to move through it without expectation, but with reverence. Some journeys are not meant to be finished, they are only meant to be experienced, to be lived in the quiet, fragile moments between breaths, between steps, between the sands. As the traveler stands still, feeling the soft pull of the wind against their skin, the final reflection lingers. The desert holds its breath, as if listening for something that has been lost. Some journeys are not meant to be conquered, only survived with humility. The traveler's steps, though light and soft, echo through the endless dunes, fading as the whispers of the wind, as if the desert itself is erasing them from memory. The listener is left with the quiet, sacred uncertainty of those footsteps, fading into the wind, leaving no trace behind. In the desert, nothing is ever truly lost. It simply becomes part of the earth, part of the air, part of the eternal rhythm of time. And as the last traces of the traveler fade into the vastness, the desert returns to its silence, holding its secrets close once more. Perhaps it was never meant to be found, the answer to this journey. Perhaps it is enough that the traveler walked, that they listened, that they survived. And in this survival, there is grace. The desert is patient, and its truths come not in words, but in the stillness of the journey itself. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen, when we are ready to hear the ancient language of the wind, the sand, the stars. And so the journey continues, silent, sacred, and infinite as the desert itself. In the deepest shadows of a hall, where the silence is thick enough to touch, a vision stirs, faint yet clear. There, suspended in the dim light, stands a scale. It is ancient, wrought with meaning, poised between feather and flesh. The feather rests lightly, as if it were nothing more than a whisper. The heart, heavy, solid, unwavering. The soft question drifts through the air like a secret passed between the walls of the temple. What if survival depended not on strength, but on purity? The question hovers, unanswered, as the scale waits in stillness. Beneath the silence, beneath the dust that clings to the forgotten stones, there lies a mystery, a truth known by few but felt by all, that after death a person must face judgment, not in the noisy halls of the living, but in a chamber veiled from view, a place where unseen witnesses stand in quiet attention. The gods, cloaked in their endless patience, weigh the heart of the soul, searching for truth and light.
The scale does not bend for power nor for wealth. It listens only to the quiet voice of truth. What is pure is light, and what is tainted will fall heavy, unable to rise. The journey begins here, in the silence of this sacred chamber, where the soul stands before quiet gods, alone but not abandoned. The heart, warm with memories and regrets, is weighed by the feather of Ma'at, the embodiment of truth, balance, and order. The feather, so light and delicate, seems almost to float upon the air. Yet it is no feather to be ignored. It carries the weight of the universe. And as it tips, it reveals the measure of a life of choices, of actions taken or avoided, of words spoken or left unspoken. But as the soul stands there, heavy with the weight of its deeds, we return gently, almost imperceptibly, to the realm of the living. For the fear of that scale shapes the days of those who walk in the light. It shapes how they act, how they breathe, how they choose to live. The scale, though unseen, lingers in their hearts, shaping their choices in ways they may not even understand. We enter now the quiet life, where the scale is not visible, but its influence is felt in the still moments of everyday living. A worker, eyes cast downward, resists the temptation to steal grain, feeling the weight of a truth too delicate to shatter. A scribe, his quill poised above parchment, chooses truth over convenience, his words shaping the world with every stroke. A mother, cradling her child in her arms, hums softly, her lullaby not of sleep, but of virtues, truth, honor, compassion, teaching the child the names of these sacred things as if they were as essential as breath itself. These are the quiet acts that echo across the scale, the small gestures of conscience that, when added together, weigh more than anything the world could offer.
The rhythm of life unfolds in these small, deliberate acts, each one a whisper of the heart. The scale does not judge in grand gestures, in mighty deeds, but in these small, steady choices that shape the soul and bind it to the forces of truth and balance. The feather does not fall for the strong, but for the pure. It is said that the gods do not watch with the eyes of men, but with the eyes of eternity, where every breath is a gift and every choice carries weight. But as we move deeper into this world, contradictions begin to unfurl. The rich, with their golden tombs and elaborate spells, seem untouched by the judgment that looms over all. They can buy the finest coffins, the most beautiful burial grounds, the words of powerful priests, but none of it matters. The scale cares not for wealth, not for reputation. It is not moved by the glitter of gold or the sound of coin. It listens only to the quiet beat of the heart and the whisper of truth. The feather of Ma'at, light as breath, can crush the lie with its silence. It does not bend for those who can afford to buy their way out of judgment. It does not care for the illusions woven by priests or the luxuries piled high in the tombs. The scale remains steady, unyielding, unmoved by the storms of the world, and the feather waits, unchanging, never swayed by the noise of the living. The chapter deepens. Survival is not only a matter of flesh, of strength, of food or water. It is a matter of endurance, of conscience. It is the quiet endurance of truth, the ability to carry within oneself the purity of the heart, even as the world presses in. As the day fades, the scale remains, still and unmoving.
The feather, light as air, never shifts. The heart, unseen in its place, beats steadily, but it too is held by the weight of the silence. The chamber darkens, the feather unmoving, the heart waiting, unseen just as it has always been. The scale waits in darkness, and the feather remains untouched, as if the world is holding its breath. The final reflection settles gently, like the last remnants of the evening breeze. What weighs more in the end? What we did or what we carried inside? The question lingers softly in the air, as if waiting for the answer to rise from the heart, waiting for the listener to find the answer within themselves. But perhaps there is no answer, not yet. Perhaps it is never meant to be found. Perhaps the weight of the heart is not for the living to understand, but for the gods to weigh in silence, in the quiet moments between breaths, between lives. And so the scale waits. It is always there, unyielding and patient, a silent judge of the soul. But for now, it is the silence that speaks the loudest, leaving the listener suspended in sacred uncertainty, as if the weight of the question itself is enough to carry the heart through the night. Perhaps it was never meant to be found, the answer to this mystery. Perhaps survival is not the art of conquering, but the art of being pure, of carrying truth within, no matter how heavy the world may be. The scale remains, its shadow cast across the land, waiting, always waiting, and we, the travelers of life, can only listen for the truth that lies inside, waiting to be heard. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen.
A scroll unfurls slowly in the pale moonlight. Its surface, delicate and worn, stretches out like the fragile skin of a river's last whisper. The ink upon it runs like veins, faint but purposeful, curling across the reed with quiet authority. The night is still, save for the soft rustle of the papyrus as it breathes in the cool air. Beneath the soft light, a young apprentice scribe breathes carefully, as if each breath could break the fragile parchment beneath his fingers. His movements are deliberate, as though he is handling something far more precious than words, something that holds the very pulse of life itself. Why did writing feel like magic, and who was allowed to touch it? The question lingers in the air, hanging like the silence before dawn. The scribe's hand hovers over the scroll, unsure of its significance, yet certain of its power. The ink is not just ink, it is a conduit, a bridge between worlds, between the seen and the unseen, between men and gods. In this simple act of writing, there is a sacred mystery. A name, a word, a symbol, each one holds the power to create or destroy, to bless or curse. Writing, in its essence, was a ritual, one that could shape the fate of kingdoms, of lives, of souls. We follow the apprentice deeper into the heart of the scribal school, where the walls are lined with scrolls, some new, some old, all whispering secrets too heavy to bear. The air is thick with the scent of papyrus, ink, and quiet determination. The school is not a place of strength or muscle, but of memory, of intellect. Here, survival is not measured by the ability to lift a stone, but by the ability to remember, to understand,
to weave the threads of knowledge into something that can be passed on. The sound of reed pens scratching across papyrus fills the room, soft and rhythmic, like the patter of gentle rain. The teachers move like shadows, their faces stern, their voices low, guiding the young scribes as they labor to master the intricate signs and symbols. The students repeat the signs over and over, their minds blurring into rhythm, the words flowing in an endless stream, as if the very act of writing could shape their futures. There is no room for error, for a single mistake could unravel everything, each symbol a link in a chain that binds them to a fate they cannot yet see. The narrative deepens as the true power of writing is revealed. In the world of ancient Egypt, words were not mere tools, they were the essence of existence. A single word could control grain, could determine labor, could alter the course of law or prayer. To write was to wield the power of the gods themselves. The scribes were not just workers, they were the keepers of the divine, the chosen few who held the keys to the memory of the world.
Writing was tied to Thoth, the god of wisdom and memory, who held the balance of knowledge in his hands. It was said that Thoth could record the very thoughts of the gods, preserving them for eternity. But in a world so steeped in divine significance, the scribes were more than mere recorders. They were the gatekeepers of truth, the silent witnesses to the sacred contracts between gods and men. Each word they wrote carried the weight of the universe, and in their hands lay the power to shape the world. Yet, beneath the power of knowledge, there exists a quiet contradiction. Knowledge, though a tool of creation, could also be a trap. A single mistake, an incorrect stroke, an unchosen word could ruin a life. A wrong symbol in a contract could lead to the destruction of a family, the loss of a fortune, or worse, the loss of one's name. To be written in the scrolls of the living was to be granted a kind of immortality. To be forgotten, to be erased, was to vanish like breath into the wind. The power to write could raise one to great heights, but it could also bring the greatest fall. The ink, so carefully measured, so carefully applied, is both salvation and doom. A name, preserved upon the papyrus, becomes a whisper that echoes through time, like a faint trace upon the stone. It is said that those who were remembered in the scrolls of the scribes lived forever, yet those who were lost to memory vanished into the silence. The weight of a single line, a single word, is felt in every moment of the scribe's work. They do not write simply for the sake of preserving knowledge, they write to preserve the very essence of life itself. As the day drifts slowly into evening, we return to the scroll, now tightly rolled again, its secrets pressed into the darkness. The scribes, their work done, retreat into the quiet corners of the school, leaving the scrolls to wait, to rest. The room grows still, the air thick with the weight of what has been recorded, what has been preserved. The light from the setting sun spills in through the cracks in the walls, casting long golden shadows across the floor, as if the very act of writing has shaped the world around it. The final reflection settles, gentle as the soft closing of a book. In a world of stone and sand, words were the most fragile doors to eternity. The papyrus is delicate,
thin, but in its ink lies a power that could change the course of history. The scribes knew that the words they wrote could last forever, but only if they were chosen carefully. The weight of a single word, of a single line, could echo through time, could shift the course of fate. And in this quiet moment, the question remains, what was more fragile, the scroll itself or the knowledge it held? Perhaps it was never meant to be found, this truth of writing. Perhaps the mystery is in the act itself, the shaping of words, the creation of meaning from nothing. Perhaps the true power of writing is not in what is preserved, but in what is written with intention, with care. The scribes who lived in that world knew that their work was sacred, that they were not merely recording events, but preserving the soul of civilization. And perhaps, in the end, that is what writing truly is, a bridge between the living and the dead, a quiet door that opens into eternity. As the final scroll is tucked away in the shadows, the scribe's hand trembles, ever so slightly, as if still holding the weight of the world, and the listener, now drifting in the quiet dark, is left with the tender thought, some doors open and some close, but the words we leave behind carry us forward. In the stillness of night, a temple courtyard stretches before us, ancient and silent. The statues stand like eternal sentinels, their eyes wide and carved to catch the soft glimmer of starlight, as if watching the heavens for a sign. Each face, worn by time yet full of silent presence, turns toward the vast sky above. The shadows of the statues stretch long across the stone floor, their forms both solid and ethereal, marked by centuries of weather, yet still as alive as the breath of the earth itself. The question drifts through the cool air, as soft as incense rising from a sacred offering. Did the gods merely receive prayers, or did they listen and remember? The thought lingers, like a whisper caught between worlds. There is a sense that in this place the line between the divine and the mortal is thin, so thin, in fact, that one might almost believe that these statues, carved of stone, are not just representations of the gods, but vessels, holding within them the breath of something unseen, something eternal. As the night deepens, the air is heavy with this sacred question, as if the very stones beneath our feet are waiting for an answer. We drift through the streets of Thebes, Memphis, or another ancient heart of civilization, where life moves beneath the watchful eyes of stone faces. These statues, towering and silent, stand as guardians to the city's every moment, their eyes always open, always vigilant. The sound of footsteps echoes through worn pavement, each step a soft prayer in the presence of the divine. The market square hums with life, the vibrant bustle of people trading wares, but as a procession passes, a hush falls over the crowd. The statues, though silent, seem to share in the stillness, as if they too acknowledge the sacredness of this fleeting moment. The air tastes faintly of lotus and smoke, mixing with the ordinary rhythm of the city. But beneath the ordinary rhythm of the city there is an awareness, one that pulses through the streets, through the very stones of the temples. The gods are not absent here. Their presence, though veiled, is always felt, and as the people move through the city, Their prayers and offerings rise into the night air, carried on the wind to the waiting stone faces, who, though they remain silent, are never still. As we move deeper into the heart of the city, the mystery of these statues unfolds. They are not mere art, not simple images of gods. These statues are vessels, possible homes for the divine breath. It is said that the gods could enter these figures, inhabiting them for brief moments, to listen to the prayers of the faithful, to receive the offerings, and perhaps to offer their own silent response. The breath of the gods, carried on the wind, would fill these stone forms, bringing them to life. A prayer, a wish, a plea, each one finding its way into the stone, where it could be heard, where it could be remembered.
And yet, for all the comfort that the statues offer, there is an undercurrent of fear. These stone faces are not only guardians, they are judges. The people pray for protection, for favor, for divine guidance. But they also know, in the quiet spaces between their words, that they live beneath the watchful gaze of the gods. The statues, though still, carry with them the weight of the divine judgment. In every prayer, there is an unspoken awareness that the gods listen not only for petitions, but for the truth within the heart. And what happens when the gods do not hear, or when their listening is not enough? As the day becomes evening, we journey through the city, moving with the rhythm of daily life. The air is filled with the quiet hum of the people. A mother buys bread at the market, her child holding her hand. In the distance, hymns rise, soft and ethereal, the voices of priests filling the air as they carry a hidden shrine through the streets. The statues watch, their stone eyes never turning away, always open to the world, always waiting. These are not just figures, they are participants in the rituals of life, silently witnessing every action, every word, every movement. The city feels alive with quiet rituals, doors painted with sacred symbols, thresholds guarded by small amulets, each marking a place where the divine touches the everyday. And yet, beneath this constant hum of life, there is mystery. The gods have no living voices now, no mouths to speak. Their names remain, etched in the stone and in the prayers of the people, but their listening is uncertain. The statues stand still, the weight of their silence a reminder that even the divine has moments of absence. Perhaps they listen, perhaps they do not. Perhaps the stone faces are empty, or perhaps they are full, but with a different kind of presence, one that cannot be understood, only felt. The night falls quietly, like the closing of an ancient door. On the surface of black water, a small boat drifts, its shape barely discernible beneath a sky heavy with stars. Each star, a distant pulse, flickers softly in the vast expanse above, their light reflecting faintly on the rippling water, as though the very night itself holds secrets too delicate to voice. In this stillness, a question drifts, as soft and unexpected as the water's gentle flow. What if every night was a descent into the underworld? The question arrives like a lullaby turned strange, a whisper that stirs beneath the silence of the dark. The boat moves steadily, almost imperceptibly, as if it too is listening for something beneath the surface. The stars above are markers on an unseen path, guiding the boat through the quiet waters that stretch out, seemingly endless. In the distance, the horizon is lost in the dark, an abyss of quiet mystery. The world seems to hold its breath,
suspended between the moment of the sun's departure and its inevitable return. This journey, this nightly passage through darkness, has been written into the very fabric of existence. It is said that the sun itself must travel through the underworld each night, facing hidden forces and unseen challenges, before it can rise again and bring the day. The journey of the boat is but a reflection of this myth, a mirror of the sun's nightly voyage, where shadows become sacred and the edge between life and death blurs. The boat drifts on, and we move with it. As it moves through the still water, the quiet life of the world unfolds around it. The fading light of the sun is not merely the end of a day, it is the beginning of something far deeper, a reminder that night is not a simple absence of light, but a descent into the unknown. The sunset is beautiful, yes, but it is also fraught with uncertainty. There is a sacred tension here, a quiet awareness that the coming darkness is both protective and dangerous. As the day retreats, a soft, meditative hum rises from the city. Priests chant low, their voices a gentle call into the darkness, invoking blessings for protection. Families close their doors, the shutters of their homes drawn tight against the unseen forces of the night. The lamps flicker to life, small suns against the dark, casting soft pools of light in the still air. Every movement is deliberate, every prayer quiet, as the world slowly slips into its nocturnal rhythm. In the city, life continues, still, reverent. The people go about their tasks, yet their awareness of the sacred and unseen world is ever present. The night is not simply a time of rest, it is a time of transition, of passage. The lamp flames flicker, casting long shadows that stretch across walls, faint echoes of the sun's last light. But these small, steady lights offer only a brief sense of security. The real journey lies beyond the reach of those flames, where the night is not simply a time to sleep, but a sacred passage through hidden chambers.
The deeper we go, the more the sacred mystery of the night reveals itself. The underworld, a realm that is neither wholly dark nor wholly light, lies beneath the surface of every night, waiting. It is not feared so much as revered, understood as a necessary part of the cosmic cycle. The Egyptians knew that survival was never guaranteed. The night, like the sun's daily passage through darkness, was always uncertain. Yet they moved through it with reverence, understanding that even the gods themselves had to face the shadowed realms. Protective spells, amulets, and whispered names were not just rituals, but lifelines, guides for both the sun and the soul, meant to steer them safely through the labyrinths of night. The gates of the underworld, though invisible, were ever present. The guardians, those silent sentinels of shadow, moved like smoke through the dark. The serpents of chaos slithered across the path of the sun, their forms hidden, their influence felt but not seen. They were not monsters to be defeated, but forces to be respected, forces that moved in ways beyond mortal comprehension. The boat, adrift on dark water, understands this. The water itself is a mirror to the night, reflecting the vastness of the unknown, holding the weight of the journey and the tension of what lies beyond. As the boat moves, the world around it seems to hold its breath. The dark water laps gently against the sides, as though it too is aware of the journey being undertaken. In the distance, the horizon is slowly starting to shift, the first hint of light brushing against the edge of the world. The boat drifts toward this light, but it is still far away. For now, it is enough to move through the dark, to feel the quiet strength of the journey. The stars above, once so distant, begin to fade as the dawn approaches, but their presence lingers still, like a promise made in silence. The chapter deepens, and we begin to feel the symbolic weight of the boat's journey. The night, though dark and full of mystery, is also a kind of passage, an essential part of the cycle of life and death, of light and shadow. The sun's victory over the darkness, repeated every night, is not something that can be won by brute strength alone. It is a victory of endurance, of balance, of reverence for the unseen forces that guide the world. The boat moves through the darkness as the sun moves through the underworld, carrying with it the weight of this ancient truth. As the night gives way to dawn, the boat begins its final approach toward the light. The horizon softens, the first blush of morning casting a warm glow across the water. The birds stir in the distance, the world exhaling in quiet relief as the darkness recedes. The journey is complete, the night past. The sun, after its long voyage through the underworld, begins its rise once more. But the final reflection remains tenderly unresolved. We wake because something unseen fought for the light while we slept. In the quiet moments between sleep and wakefulness, between darkness and light, there lies a mystery, an unseen force that moves through the night, guiding the sun and the soul through shadowed paths. Perhaps this is the true magic of the night, not the darkness itself, but the quiet, unseen fight for the light, the endless cycle of survival that carries on, repeated endlessly, never guaranteed, always miraculous. The boat drifts into the light, and the listener is left in the soft, sacred uncertainty of the night's journey, its mysteries, its silent forces, and its promise of renewal. In the quiet space between breaths, the world holds its balance, and the silence speaks of all that is unseen and all that is yet to come. Perhaps it was never meant to be fully understood, this cycle of darkness and light. Perhaps it is only meant to be felt, like the quiet ripples of water beneath the boat, guiding us, always guiding us, through the night. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen, and in the listening we find our way.
And so, as the Nile flows silently beneath the moonlight, our journey through ancient Egypt comes to rest. The echoes of temple bells fade, the desert winds grow still, and the ancient world slips back into the past, where it belongs. You are safe now, far from the burning sun, the hidden dangers, and the fragile life of another time. Let your body sink deeper into rest, your thoughts drifting like sand across the dunes, soft, slow, and weightless. Thank you for sharing this quiet moment with Twilight Tale. If you enjoyed this gentle journey through history, you may simply let the next story carry you further into sleep. Until then, may your dreams be calm, your night be peaceful, and history whisper softly in the twilight. Good night.